At the class reunion, everyone was drinking and toasting, the atmosphere buzzing with excitement. Michael's buddies were the first to start teasing, insisting that he and I drink a cross-cupped toast. Just as we linked arms and were about to drink, the door to the private room was pushed open. In walked his first love, Emily. After greeting everyone, she lifted her eyes and looked straight at Michael, who was sitting across from me. "Michael, I'm back," she said. Everyone froze for a few seconds, then, without saying a word, they all turned to look at me. The mood in the room instantly shifted, subtle, yet suffocating. One of Michael's friends sneered. "Back when Michael was seriously ill, you dumped him without hesitation. You didn't care whether he lived or died, so why are you back now?" Emily looked like she'd just been stung. Her eyes reddened instantly. She slowly walked over to Michael's side and said weakly, "Michael, are you still mad at me?" Michael's grip on his wine glass tightened, his knuckles turning white. Suddenly, he reached out and pulled me into his arms, then looked at Emily and said, "My fiancé is right here. Miss Emily, you'd better watch what you say." Emily's eyes dropped to his hand on my shoulder, and the tears that had been welling up suddenly fell. She looked so pitiful. Then she pulled out a silver necklace with a jade boot-up pendant from around her neck. The moment Michael saw the pendant, his pupils shrank sharply. I recognized it too. It was his mother's keepsake. He used to wear it close to his body ever since he was little, never even taking it off to shower. I used to wonder why, after he got better, he suddenly stopped wearing it. Now I knew it had been given to Emily. Emily took off the necklace and cried as she spoke. "I'm really sorry for leaving 3 years ago, but I had no choice. I had to pursue my dream. Do you remember what you told me when you gave me this jade boot-up? You said no matter how badly we ended things, as long as I showed you this boot-up, you would come back to me." There was a glimmer of hope in her eyes as her voice trembled. "Michael, I'm willing to give everything up and come back to you. Will you still marry me?" Michael stared intently at the Buddha in her hand. The hand he had wrapped around my shoulders suddenly tightened with force. I winced in pain. Emily, seeing that he still didn't say a word, bit her trembling lips hard as though her heart had just shattered. "I understand now," she whispered. "I won't bother you again." She placed the jade Buddha on the table in front of him, turned and ran out crying. The door slammed shut behind her, like it had sealed off the air in the room. The atmosphere became unbearably heavy, but in the next second, Michael grabbed the Buddha and abruptly stood up. I felt a wave of unease and grabbed his hand. "Michael," he clutched the jade Buddha in his palm, and after what felt like a painful internal struggle, he began prying open my fingers one by one. He was determined. I was terrified something would happen. Without even looking back, he ran after Emily. Everyone else couldn't resist and followed him out. One of Michael's friends pulled me along. "You've got to stop him," he said urgently. "Emily is like a demon in his heart. He just can't control himself." He dragged me all the way to the hotel lobby, and just as we arrived, we saw Michael pull Emily into his arms at the entrance. Emily sobbed in his embrace like a delicate flower in the rain. "Michael, I knew you couldn't forget me," she cried. I stood there and watched as Emily wrapped her arms around his neck, tiptoed and kissed him. He didn't pull away. Instead, he instinctively held her waist and kissed her back, fiercely, passionately. Strangers in the lobby started filming and snapping pictures. 2 girls nearby squealed with excitement. "Look, isn't that Emily, the world champion?" One said, "Oh my God, her boyfriend is so hot," the other added. "This is like something straight out of a drama." No one knew I was the one engaged to Michael. I stood there like a fool, surrounded by classmates who came out to watch the show. One of Michael's friends couldn't take it anymore and wanted to go pull him away, but I stopped him. I looked at the 2 of them, locked in a kiss, unable to look away as my vision blurred. Even if you dragged him back, what's the point of his heart? Is it with me anymore? I'd loved Michael for 10 whole years. I'd stood by his side even when he was so sick he almost died. But at that moment everything inside me just collapsed. Michael didn't come home that night. I waited for him on the living room couch until morning. It wasn't until noon the next day that Michael finally came home. He was wearing a fresh set of clothes. When he saw me, he froze for a second, then smiled as if nothing had happened. "When did you get here?" he asked casually. "Why didn't you tell me ahead of time?" He walked right past me without a trace of guilt, opened the fridge and grabbed a bottle of chilled soda water. Twisting the cap off, he took several long gulps. I looked at the engagement ring on my middle finger and asked, "Did you sleep with Emily last night?" Michael's hand tightened around the plastic bottle. He turned to look at me. "Zoe, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't beat around the bush." I stared at the hickey on his neck and gave a bitter smile. There's nothing left to say. I slowly took off the engagement ring I once put on with such joy and pride. I could still remember the night he gave it to me. How I danced around the room like a fool, overwhelmed with happiness. I leaned down and gently placed the ring on the coffee table. Michael immediately stepped forward, like he had no idea how much I was hurting inside, and pointed at the ring. "What's this supposed to mean? You're upset because I spent the night with Emily, so now you're deliberately trying to pick a fight. Zoe, it's not like you didn't know I've always loved her. You chose to get engaged to me anyway, even knowing that. So why can't you handle it now?" I looked directly at him. "Your past with her, I accepted that. But what you did now, that's cheating. I can't accept that." A look of mockery appeared on his face. "Fine, if you can't take it, then let's break up. But Zoe, don't expect me to come begging. I don't have the patience for that." He'd said, "Let's break up" so many times before that it had become a habit. Because I was always the one to give in and make peace. He thought I'd never actually leave him. Just then Emily called. Michael's hand shook slightly as he hit speaker by accident. Her voice came through, soft and trembling with tears. "Michael, I think someone's following me. I'm really scared." Michael immediately tensed up. "Where are you? Send me your location, I'm coming right now." He didn't even glance at me. He was already heading out the door as he spoke. The door slammed shut with a loud bang. Michael had once again left me behind for Emily. But what he didn't know was, this time I wasn't going to look back. That night I got drunk alone at a bar. I clung to the wall in the bathroom, throwing up so hard I thought I'd faint. On my way down the corridor, a strange man tried to harass me. That's when Chris suddenly appeared. His tall frame blocked me protectively. "Get lost," he snapped at the man, who quickly backed off and disappeared. Chris turned and steadied me before I collapsed. "Zoe, is he really worth you destroying yourself like this?" I leaned back against the wall, my body barely holding itself up. I looked up at him. His sharp jawline, high nose bridge. He was looking down at me with steady, piercing eyes. I blinked in surprise. "Weren't you in Hong Kong? Why are you suddenly back here?" Chris's expression was calm, but intense. I saw the trending searches. Someone uploaded a photo of Michael and Emily kissing last night. It's all over the internet now. Everyone's shipping them like they're some romantic couple. He paused, his tone heavy. "And you're being painted as the third wheel." My face flushed with embarrassment, so even people in Hong Kong had seen how humiliated I was. I lowered my head in shame, but Chris reached out just in time to catch me before I fell. I stared down at the shoulder of his suit, now so close to mine, and murmured softly, "Chris, I regret it. I should have listened to you back then." The three of us, Chris, Michael, and I, had been high school classmates. Chris had always disapproved of my relationship with Michael. He'd warned me not to be with him, but I didn't listen. And now I was paying the price. Chris stayed silent for a few seconds. Then, without a word, he gently pressed my head against his chest. Through his suit jacket, I could hear the steady beat of his heart. Soon I heard Chris's calm voice above my head. "It's not too late, Zoe. Came back for you." Chris had transferred to our class in our second year of high school. Before he arrived, Michael was the golden boy, admired by everyone. His ego inflated by constant praise. But after Chris came, everything changed. No matter how wealthy the Johnsons were, they couldn't compare to the Grant family. And Chris wasn't just rich. He was a top student, always first in every subject. Someone like Michael, arrogant and proud, couldn't stand being outshined. Naturally, the two of them became fierce rivals. The sound of running water in the hotel bathroom finally stopped, snapping me out of my memories. I had come here with Chris after he said, "Do you want revenge?" At that moment, fueled by emotion, I agreed. Now he had just finished showering, and my drunken haze was wearing off. I started to feel a little regret. I grabbed my purse and was about to quietly sneak out when Chris came out of the bathroom, wearing only a towel around his waist. I ran right into him. Heat radiated from his body, and my face instantly flushed. He stepped closer, a confident pressure in his eyes that made me instinctively back away. Until I was pressed into a corner. I struggled to breathe, avoiding his gaze. "Chris, maybe this isn't right." His Adam's apple moved as he said, "Neither of us is married. What's not right about it?" Then he suddenly leaned in close, his warm breath brushing against my face. "Zoe, I know exactly what I'm doing. I've waited 6 years for you. I'm not going to miss this chance again." For a moment, I felt like I had traveled back in time to the day we graduated high school, when he cornered me in an empty classroom and said, "Zoe, I like you. Be my girlfriend." Now his strong presence, the hormones radiating from his body, overwhelmed every nerve in me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, my heart skipped. Just as his lips were about to touch mine, my phone suddenly rang. I froze for 2 seconds, then gently pushed him back and scrambled through my bag in a panic. The screen showed Michael calling. I was about to decline when Chris snatched the phone from my hand. He raised a finger to his lips, signaling me to stay quiet, then hit answer. Michael's voice shouted through the line. "Zoe, what the hell does it mean that you left your engagement ring behind? I never agreed to break up with you. I'm giving you 1 hour. Get your ass back here." Chris gave a cold smirk as he brought the phone to his ear and looked me straight in the eyes. 1 hour. That might be tough, we're not quite finished here. He added almost playfully. "If you're in such a hurry to see her, come to room 1903 at the River Island Hotel, and bring me a large plate of escargot on your way." "Thanks." Michael showed up soon after. Chris was the one who opened the door. Michael took one look at him standing there in a bathrobe, hair still damp, and immediately swung the punch. Chris didn't hold back. He grabbed Michael by the collar and punched him hard in the left side of his face. Blood trickled from the corner of Michael's mouth. The two of them began to fight. I rushed forward and pushed them apart, standing protectively in front of Chris. "Have you lost your mind?" I yelled at Michael. Michael's fists clenched at his sides, trembling with rage as he stared at me in disbelief. "Zoe, you're protecting him." His fingers shook with fury as he pointed at Chris. He gritted his teeth. "You're my fiancé and you're protecting another man." I stared back at him and said firmly, "Michael, it's over." He glared at me, unwilling to accept it. "Zoe, weren't you the one who begged to marry me? And now you just decide it's over just like that? I'm telling you, no way. You don't get to decide." With that, he stormed toward me, grabbed my arm, and tried to drag me out the door. At the same moment, Chris grabbed my other wrist. His voice turned ice cold. "Let go of her. Zoe's not going anywhere. As long as you don't want to leave, no one can take you away tonight," Chris said. I looked at Michael, who was gritting his teeth silently, then turned to Chris, whose face remained calm and composed. In the end, I pulled both my arms free from their grip. Turning to Michael, I said, "You should go. And don't ever come looking for me again." Michael stared at me coldly. "Zoe, I tried to be civil, but I see you don't appreciate it. Fine, just remember you said it yourself. Don't come crawling back." He shot Chris one last venomous glare like he was warning him. "You better watch your back," then slammed the door and stormed out. The room fell into a suffocating silence. Then my phone rang again. It was my mom. Her tone was sharp and commanding. She ordered me to come home immediately. Chris drove me back. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw my mom sitting on the living room sofa reading. When she noticed me, she closed the book and placed it face down on the coffee table, then took off her glasses and set them neatly on top of the book. Without a word, she opened the Weibo app on her phone and pulled up the photo of Michael kissing Emily. She handed the phone to me. "What's going on?" I answered honestly. "The girl in the photo is Michael's first love. They're back together. So Mom, I broke up with him." Her expression darkened immediately. "But news of your engagement has already spread in our circle. Zoe, are you deliberately trying to embarrass the entire Shin family?" Mumbled. "I'm sorry, Mum." Her words came crisp and cold. "I don't care what happened between you two, but in half a month it's your grandfather's 80th birthday. I've invited a lot of guests. You must bring Michael to attend with you. Let the trending gossip die on its own." "But Mom," she cut me off sharply. "I don't want to hear it. I've invested a fortune raising you. You should know exactly what your worth is." Course I knew. She adopted me from an orphanage to raise me as a tool for marriage alliances. As an adopted daughter of the Shen family, I never had a say in anything except for one thing. Marrying Michael was the only decision I insisted on for myself. Because the Johnson family's background was decent enough, my mom agreed. She stood up from the sofa and said firmly, "In families like ours, reputation is everything. Compared to the Shen family's public image, your so-called dignity is worthless." As she passed me on her way upstairs, she stopped and added coldly, "Even if you and Michael get married and then divorce, we will not let outsiders mock the Shen family. No one will say that a daughter of ours got dumped." The birthday banquet was held in a hotel ballroom. Giant floor-to-ceiling windows let natural light pour in, mixing with the glittering chandeliers to create a warm and luxurious atmosphere. I followed my mom around as she socialized and entertained guests. Someone praised. I heard little Edward won first place at an international speech contest. So young and already so accomplished. Edward was my mom's biological son, 10 years younger than me. He'd been sent abroad for what they called the best education since he was a child. By age 5 or 6, he could already recite fluent English speeches. Hearing others praise Edward made my mom beam with pride. Her smile was radiant. Then someone asked, "So Zoe, when's the wedding?" My mom's smile froze for just a second before she replied with forced cheer, "Still finalizing the date." But the guests seemed to be deliberately stirring things up. While the Johnson and Shin families have been engaged for a while now, that photo going viral online must be fake. My mom's expression turned even stiffer. She turned to me and whispered, "When is Michael arriving?" Before I could say anything, someone pointed at the entrance. "There he is, Michael just arrived and he brought a date." It was Emily. Michael had actually brought her here. Every guest in the banquet hall turned their heads toward me. My mother's smile barely held together. She was clenching her molars so tightly I could hear it. She gave me a sharp glare as if I'd humiliated her personally. Michael scanned the crowd and his eyes locked on me. His lips curled into a smirk filled with mockery and provocation. It was obvious he'd done it all on purpose to humiliate me, to get back at me for throwing him out of the hotel that night. After using the restroom, I ran into Emily in the hallway. She crossed her arms, wearing a smug smile. "Zoe, surprised to see me here tonight." I could tell she had nothing nice to say, and I didn't want to get into it. I tried to walk past her, but she stepped in my way. "Zoe Shen," she sneered. "What are you so proud of? You're just an adopted daughter of the Shen family." It felt like someone had jabbed right into my deepest wound. My head snapped up and I glared at her. "You know who told me you were adopted?" Emily said with a smug smile. "Michael, he's the only one who knew." She admitted it without hesitation, her tone light and cruel. "That's right, he also said you were just someone he used to pass the time while he was lonely. Now that I'm back, you're worthless." She laughed softly, clearly enjoying herself. "Besides, you're just an adopted daughter. I'm a world champion, adored, admired. The difference between us is obvious. What do you even have to compete with me? The air around us felt thinner, like I couldn't breathe. I locked eyes with Emily, neither of us backing down. The tension between us simmered until a phone rang from around the corner, then stopped. A girl crept out sheepishly, clearly having eavesdropped. Her face red with embarrassment as she scurried past us. Soon after, word that I was the adopted daughter of the Shen family spread through the banquet. In the eyes of the privileged kids born with silver spoons in their mouths, I was no different from a maid, living off the charity of her employers. No matter where I went, people stared at me with judgment in their eyes. I kept my head down and pretended not to notice their sneers. I walked quickly to a nearby table, picked up a glass of red wine with trembling hands, and downed it in one gulp. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Michael. "Zoe Shen, I told you you'd regret this. I'm curious now that Chris knows you're adopted. Do you think he'll still want you?" I gripped the phone tighter and scanned the crowd for Michael. He was leaning casually against a table, lifting his wine glass toward me with a mocking smile. He mouthed the single word, "Cheers." I clenched my fists and started walking toward him. In my rush, I didn't see the waiter coming from behind with a tray. We collided head-on. The tray of champagne toppled, soaking the front of my gown. The champagne left a large see-through stain across my chest, nearly exposing me. I instinctively crossed my arms to cover myself. The waiter scrambled to his feet, apologizing non-stop. A crowd quickly gathered. People whispered, pointed, laughed. The humiliation, the stares, it all triggered something buried deep in me. It took me back to the orphanage, where I'd always been the small, malnourished kid. The older kids used to trap me in alleys and bully me. When it rained, they'd shove my face into muddy puddles and force me to drink the dirty water. They filled my shoes with rocks and made me walk in them until I bled. So when the waiter reached out to help, I panicked and recoiled, stumbling backward in fear like a startled animal. In my clumsy attempt to escape, I turned and crashed straight into Chris's chest. He wrapped his arms around me tightly, ignoring my struggling. His warm hand gently cupped the back of my head. His voice was soft, full of pain and apology. "I'm sorry I got here too late." Everyone around us fell silent the moment Chris appeared. Then whispers rippled through the crowd. "Isn't that Mr. Grant's eldest grandson? What's he doing here?" "You mean the Mr. Grant? The business legend from Hong Kong?" "Yeah, that's his official heir. But what's his relationship with the Shen family's adopted daughter?" Chris didn't say a word. He simply took off his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders, covering my chest. Then he bent down and swept me off my feet. "I'm taking you home," he said. I looked up at him, grateful. Tears slipped from the corners of my eyes. Chris carried me through the ballroom. We were nearly at the exit when Michael suddenly rushed up and blocked our path. "Put her down," Michael snapped, standing in front of the door. Chris's expression sharpened. "What if I don't?" Michael narrowed his eyes. "Then you're not getting out of here." Neither man moved. The tension was electric, like a storm about to erupt. Everyone held their breath. Chris gave a faint chuckle, but his voice was cold as ice. "You think you can stop me?" He clearly didn't take Michael's threat seriously and kept walking forward. With each step Chris took, Michael's fists clenched tighter, his whole body tensing. The room went still. Zoe." It was my mother's voice, cutting through the silence, breaking the station's ratings record for the past decade. The Comet feed flooded with messages, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." My director, clearly worried I'd do something reckless, urgently whispered through my earpiece, "Zoe, I don't care what's going on between the three of you. Right now you must stay professional and finish this broadcast. If anything goes wrong, the network will hold you personally responsible." All around me, colleagues gave me complicated probing looks. Emily's triumphant smile and the satisfaction in Michael's eyes. They all seemed to expect me to lose control, but instead, I calmly set down my cue cards and clapped along with the audience, chanting cheerfully, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." Michael's smile faltered. His face darkened visibly. The broadcast ended in complete success. Everyone at the station gave me a thumbs up, praising my professionalism. Even our notoriously stern director opened a bottle of champagne for me. "Zoe, I knew you were our lucky charm," he said, grinning. "Tonight's ratings just broke a 10-year record, promotion and raise. Just wait." I accepted the glass with a smile and replied humbly, "I owe it all to your generous guidance over the years. This toast is for you." The director, who loved flattery, practically glowed with pride, but I knew better. The same colleagues who were now giving me thumbs up were privately laughing at me for being humiliated. The director who praised me so highly, just a two-faced flatterer. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that I had seized my moment. After tonight, I would no longer be the invisible little anchor no one cared about. For that I had to thank Emily. Back in Hong Kong, Chris's assistant knocked gently and entered the study. "Mr. Grant, your private jet is ready. We can depart at any time." Chris didn't respond. He was glued to the TV watching the live stream replay. Specifically, the moment when I clapped with the audience and chanted, "Kiss, kiss." He had watched that clip more times than he could count, analyzing my every expression, every movement, searching for something. Was I able to act so calmly in front of Emily and Michael? Because Michael no longer mattered to me. When he'd first seen the broadcast, he'd been worried Emily might corner me and make things difficult. He had even planned to fly back right away to support me. But now it seemed he had been overthinking it. Chris smiled quietly, lips curving slightly. Then, without a word, he pulled a cigarette from its case and said simply, "Cancel my flight." After work, I walked out of the TV station's office building. It was already past 9 p.m. Out of nowhere, Michael suddenly appeared, rushed toward me, and grabbed my arm to pull me away. I had to struggle hard to shake him off. "What are you doing?" Michael lost control and snapped at me. "Zoe Shen, have you made enough of a scene yet? I've been giving you so many chances, don't you get it?" I rubbed my wrist where he had grabbed me. "Michael, even now, you still think I'm just throwing a tantrum." He raked both hands through his hair in frustration. "What else am I supposed to think? You love me so much. You can't live without me." "Okay, fine, I admit I have feelings for Emily. I lose control when I'm around her. But I never planned to marry her." He grabbed my shoulders like he was making some grand declaration. "Zoe, after spending all these years with you, I've come to really like you. I don't care that you're adopted. I never thought about breaking off our engagement. Don't you understand? I went on that show tonight just to piss you off. You're the one who's been all over that guy, Chris. What was I supposed to do? Made me furious." He looked at me as if expecting sympathy. "Now we're even, right? Forgive you. Let's just make up, okay?" He even tried to hug me. I shoved him away and, disgust, pulled the marriage certificate from my bag and threw it in his face. "Michael, I'm married." "Chris." Michael stared at the marriage certificate in my hand. His face went pale, eyes widening like they were about to pop out of his skull. "I don't believe you," he whispered. I looked at him without emotion. "The marriage certificate is right here. Chris and I are legally registered, husband and wife. You can check it yourself. Or I can prove it to you right now." I dialed Chris's number in front of him and put the call on speaker. The phone was picked up almost immediately. Chris's voice was gentle, warm. "All done for the day," I said softly, my eyes fixed on Michael's stormy expression. Into the phone I said clearly, "Honey, I miss you." The air fell completely still. Michael's fists clenched, the joints cracking with tension. On the other end of the line, Chris let out a nearly inaudible breath, his Adam's apple bobbing slightly. Just as Michael lunged to snatch the phone from me in a fury, Chris's calm voice came through. "I miss you too." After I ended the call, the car I had ordered pulled up. I walked right past Michael. This time he didn't try to stop me. I got into the car and it slowly pulled away. From the rearview mirror, I saw Michael standing alone under the night sky, frozen like a statue. He didn't move. The city streets at night were a stream of color, headlights and taillights weaving like ribbons of light. The buildings lining the road rose high and proud, glowing under neon signs and street lamps. When the light turned red, the car slowed. Pedestrians passed through the crosswalk in groups, students walking home together in twos and threes. Watching them reminded me of the first time I met Michael. It was also on my way home from school. Back then, I was in my 3rd year of middle school. I had just finished night classes and was heading home when a few older boys from outside the school cornered me. One of them, bleached hair, familiar face, used to live at the same orphanage as me. He recognized me. He threatened to expose my secret, to tell the entire school I was the Shen family's adopted daughter. Unless I paid him to keep quiet. I was attending a prestigious private school. If those entitled rich kids found out I was adopted, I would have been completely ostracized. I wanted to live with dignity. I didn't want to go through another round of bullying, so I handed over the money. But he didn't, seeing how easy it was to scare me. He started groping me. That's when Michael appeared and hit him in the head with a basketball. He pulled out his earphones, chewing gum, and said coolly, "A bunch of guys bullying a girl. Don't you feel even a little ashamed?" Those punks all knew Michael. He had a reputation. He was the school's notorious little tyrant. No one dared mess with him. They ran off immediately. Michael walked up to me and said, "You're Zoe Shen, right?" I looked at him in surprise. He gave a cocky smile. "Top of the class in every subject, the teacher's favorite golden girl. I've heard a lot about you." I nervously tugged at the corner of my jacket and said nothing. Then he suddenly leaned in close and blew a bubble right in my face. "I'm Michael, from now on I've got your back, but in return you'll do all my homework." The dim streetlight cast a warm glow behind him. With that lazy grin and smug confidence, maybe every girl at that age, just starting to understand love falls for the bad boy with a rebellious streak. That was my first innocent crush. Michael also became the only person at school who knew I was adopted. After that night, he started showing up outside my classroom every day after school. He'd shove his homework into my hands and walk me home. No one dared mess with me after that. Back then, I truly believed I was special to him. During basketball games, he'd only take water from me and shout for me to wipe the sweat off his forehead. On rainy days, he'd take off his jacket to cover our heads and run with me through the storm. But everything changed when Emily came back. At 4 a.m. my phone buzzed and woke me up. Still half asleep, I answered, "Hello?" Chris's voice was calm and alert. "I'm outside your house." I shot upright, sleep vanishing instantly. At the barefoot, I ran to the window, pulled back the curtain and looked outside. There was a black Maybach parked at the gate. Chris was leaning casually against the hood in a long black coat, one hand holding his phone, the other a cigarette. He was looking up right at me. Through the phone I heard him chuckle. "Now I know which room you're in." My fingers touched the cold window pane. "Why are you here?" His breathing on the other end was soft, "Because he said you missed me." I felt a pang of guilt and pressed my fingertips lightly against the glass. "I said that just to..." Before I could finish, he said, "To make Michael jealous," I figured. Even so, his voice was steady and warm, comforting like no one else's. "But I missed you. So I flew here overnight just to see you." That late autumn night, something warm spread through my chest. I knew he'd come because he was worried. Chris didn't come in. He had an important meeting that afternoon and had to fly back to Hong Kong. But even long after he left, my heart couldn't settle down. Emily was notoriously difficult to book. But ever since she accepted my interview, I'd become one of the most sought-after hosts at the station. Other celebrities started calling the network themselves, hoping to book a segment with me. The station promoted me. My mom was eager to strike while the iron was hot, and had the station launch a solo interview program under my name. Because my interview style was sharp and direct, it became a hit with online audiences. For 2 straight weeks, my show had the highest ratings in its time slot, breaking multiple records. All those people who once mocked me, saying I only got my job through connections, now had to call me Queen Zoe when they saw me. Even my mom finally praised me for the first time in my life. Zoe, you've done well. Remember, you represent the Shin family. Always make us proud. She'd said the exact same thing the day she adopted me. I was 6 years old. She arrived at the orphanage in designer clothes and said she was only looking for a girl. I was tired of being bullied, so I did everything I could to stand out, desperate to get her attention. And she chose me. It was the first time I ever rode in a Mercedes. I sat on the edge of the seat, barely breathing, afraid of dirtying the leather. She gently patted my head. Do you know I had picked you? I shook my head. Because your eyes are different from the others, she said. There's determination in them. She squeezed my small hand. From today on, your name is Zoe Shin. As a daughter of the Shin family, you must always remember everything you do must bring honor to the Shin name. Do you understand? From that day forward, every moment in the Shin family felt like walking on a tightrope. I was constantly afraid that one wrong step would send me back to the orphanage. I had to rank first in every subject. I had to be the best at everything, just to earn the slightest bit of recognition from my mother. Those years were exhausting. I wore the mask so long, I forgot what it meant to resist. So when I first visited Chris's home, I was completely drawn in by his mother's warmth. The dining table was set with a variety of beautifully prepared dishes, each one carefully cooked, aromatic, and mouth-watering. It was the first time anyone had ever placed food in my bowl. Chris's mom smiled at me the whole time. Zoe, it's your first time here, so I didn't know what you like to eat. I just had the kitchen put something together. Next time you have to let Auntie know ahead of time. No, wait, you have to tell Mom. Okay. As she spoke, she shot Chris a look, clearly blaming him for not telling her about something as big as us getting married. Chris placed a perfectly cut piece of steak onto my plate and joked, she just loves to nag. You'll get used to it. I smiled a little, slightly embarrassed, and said to Mrs. Grant, the food is delicious, I really like it. She nodded happily. That's good, eat more. Then she touched my arm, frowning. Look at this skinny little thing, I'll have to fatten you up. Mr. Grant didn't say much throughout dinner, but he kept smiling warmly. Every time he looked at his wife, his eyes were filled with affection. She playfully teased him from time to time like a young girl in love. From that one meal, it was obvious, even after years of marriage, when most couples grow tired of each other, they still loved deeply. I found myself envying the atmosphere in Chris's home. It was nothing like what I imagined a wealthy family would be. I liked everyone here, and more than that, I was grateful. Not a single one of them looked down on me for being adopted. After dinner, I went up to the third-floor terrace to get some air. It had a bit of red wine, so my head was spinning slightly. I thought the breeze might help clear it. Chris walked over holding a plate of fruit and called me over to eat. I quickly waved him off, rubbing my stomach. I can't eat another bite, I'm so full. It's your fault for having a kitchen that cooks too well. He laughed. If you like it so much, I'll hire the whole team to cook just for you at our house. No way, I blurted out, I'll turn into a pig. But as soon as I said it, I regretted it. Our house. That sounded a little too intimate. We were in a contract marriage, talking about the future like that felt unrealistic. The air between us turned slightly awkward. I rubbed my nose, my cheeks heating up. Chris lowered his eyes, a faint smile playing on his lips. Just then my phone rang. It was one of Michael's friends. Chris noticed my hesitation and tactfully found an excuse to walk away. Only after he was far enough did I answer the call. Zoe, where are you? Michael's friend asked. Can you come to the hospital to see him? I blinked. The hospital? Yeah, he said quickly. Michael's old condition relapsed. He's been admitted for a week now. He's not doing well. Please, just for the sake of everything you two went through. Will you come? Michael had a heart condition. 3 years ago, during his breakup with Emily, it had flared up again. Back then, Emily insisted on following her coach, even knowing the man had ulterior motives. She still left Michael saying, "We're over," and walked away. It was me who stayed with him during that time, who nursed him through his worst days, who sat by his bedside until he recovered. After he was discharged, he agreed to the engagement arranged by his family. We even had a period of happiness. He would go out of his way to cheer me up with small surprises. On every holiday, he'd prepare thoughtful gifts for me. I'd hand knit him some terribly made scarves, bake cookies that barely tasted right. But the moment Emily came back, he forgot it all. Just like the first time he met her. Like none of it had ever happened. Because Emily once said she didn't like me, Michael immediately grew cold and distant. I didn't want to go through that all over again. I lifted my chin slightly and stood against the wind. Into the phone I said calmly, "There's nothing left between us. I'm not going." I had given Michael more chances than I could count. He was the one who kept throwing them away. The next day, I accompanied Chris to his family's mountain villa to visit his grandfather. Chris had told me before that the doctor said Grandpa's condition was serious, that it might be best to bring him home and let him spend his final days peacefully. But on the way there I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Mr. and Mrs. Grant kept exchanging strange looks. Every time I asked about Grandpa's condition, they mumbled vague answers and avoided my eyes. Even Chris, who was driving, kept deliberately changing the subject. First, I thought I was just overthinking it. That was until I found an empty burger wrapper in the trash can in Grandpa's room, along with a half-finished milk tea and some stray French fry crumbs on the bedsheet. None of it seemed to match the image of the frail old man lying in bed, groaning as if on death's door. So what exactly was going on? Chris was sitting by the bed, gently holding his grandfather's wrinkled hand. He leaned in and said softly, "Grandpa, I brought Zoe to see you." The old man wheezed and groaned. His brows scrunched like he was in terrible pain, but his cheeks were clearly rosy. "My granddaughter-in-law is here," he rasped, voice trembling. He stretched a hand toward me. Mrs. Grant nudged me forward. "Go on, he's been asking for you." Chris led me to the bed and placed my hand into Grandpa's. "Here she is, Grandpa, your granddaughter-in-law." His hand was even warmer than mine, almost hot. He trembled as he spoke, mumbling long-winded blessings. He told me and Chris to live a good life together. He said Chris was a man worth trusting. And then he added, "If I could hold a great-grandchild in my arms before I die, I'd have no regrets." I could have sworn I saw him pinch Chris's hand when he said the word great-grandchild. I replied with a few gentle words, encouraging him to take care of his health. Mr. and Mrs. Grant stood silently by, their expressions unreadable. Then Grandpa insisted that Mrs. Grant bring out the family heirloom, a jade bracelet, and made a point of slipping it onto my wrist himself. "This bracelet," he said, "was blessed by the temple when your grandma was still alive. Once you wear it, you can't take it off or you'll have bad luck." I nodded and promised I'd keep it on, pretending not to notice Chris giving Grandpa a subtle thumbs up behind my back. Honestly, the whole family could have been actors, but still. Who could have imagined that this white-haired, mischievous old man had once ruled the business world with an iron fist? I didn't expose their little parade. I couldn't even explain why. Maybe because it felt warm. Since returning from Hong Kong, I'd been busy with work and hadn't told my mother about the marriage certificate. She had asked several times to meet Chris and his family, but I kept putting her off with excuses. Chris was too busy, where Grandpa's health wasn't good. Unlike with Michael's family, my mom's attitude toward the Grants was entirely different. Mr. Grant didn't say much throughout dinner, but he kept smiling warmly. Every time he looked at his wife, his eyes were filled with affection. She playfully teased him from time to time like a young girl in love. From that one meal, it was obvious, even after years of marriage, when most couples grow tired of each other, they still loved deeply. I found myself envying the atmosphere in Chris's home. It was nothing like what I imagined a wealthy family would be. I liked everyone here, and more than that, I was grateful. Not a single one of them looked down on me for being adopted. After dinner, I went up to the third-floor terrace to get some air. It had a bit of red wine, so my head was spinning slightly. I thought the breeze might help clear it. Chris walked over holding a plate of fruit and called me over to eat. I quickly waved him off, rubbing my stomach. "I can't eat another bite, I'm so full." "It's your fault for having a kitchen that cooks too well." He laughed. "If you like it so much, I'll hire the whole team to cook just for you at our house." "No way," I blurted out, "I'll turn into a pig." But as soon as I said it, I regretted it. Our house. That sounded a little too intimate. We were in a contract marriage, talking about the future like that felt unrealistic. The air between us turned slightly awkward. I rubbed my nose, my cheeks heating up. Chris lowered his eyes, a faint smile playing on his lips. Just then my phone rang. It was one of Michael's friends. Chris noticed my hesitation and tactfully found an excuse to walk away. Only after he was far enough did I answer the call. "Zoe, where are you?" Michael's friend asked. "Can you come to the hospital to see him?" I blinked. "The hospital?" "Yeah," he said quickly. Michael's old condition relapsed. "He's been admitted for a week now. He's not doing well. Please, just for the sake of everything you two went through. Will you come?" Michael had a heart condition. 3 years ago, during his breakup with Emily, it had flared up again. Back then, Emily insisted on following her coach, even knowing the man had ulterior motives. She still left Michael saying, "We're over," and walked away. It was me who stayed with him during that time, who nursed him through his worst days, who sat by his bedside until he recovered. After he was discharged, he agreed to the engagement arranged by his family. We even had a period of happiness. He would go out of his way to cheer me up with small surprises. On every holiday, he'd prepare thoughtful gifts for me. I'd hand-knit him some terribly made scarves, bake cookies that barely tasted right. But the moment Emily came back, he forgot it all. Just like the first time he met her. Like none of it had ever happened. Because Emily once said she didn't like me, Michael immediately grew cold and distant. I didn't want to go through that all over again. I lifted my chin slightly and stood against the wind. Into the phone I said calmly, "There's nothing left between us. I'm not going." I had given Michael more chances than I could count. He was the one who kept throwing them away. The next day, I accompanied Chris to his family's mountain villa to visit his grandfather. Chris had told me before that the doctor said Grandpa's condition was serious, that it might be best to bring him home and let him spend his final days peacefully. But on the way there, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Mr. and Mrs. Grant kept exchanging strange looks. Every time I asked about Grandpa's condition, they mumbled vague answers and avoided my eyes. Even Chris, who was driving, kept deliberately changing the subject. First, I thought I was just overthinking it. That was until I found an empty burger wrapper in the trash can in Grandpa's room, along with a half-finished milk tea and some stray French fry crumbs on the bedsheet. None of it seemed to match the image of the frail old man lying in bed, groaning as if on death's door. So what exactly was going on? Chris was sitting by the bed, gently holding his grandfather's wrinkled hand. He leaned in and said softly, "Grandpa, I brought Zoe to see you." The old man wheezed and groaned. His brows scrunched like he was in terrible pain, but his cheeks were clearly rosy. "My granddaughter-in-law is here," he rasped, voice trembling. He stretched a hand toward me. Mrs. Grant nudged me forward. "Go on, he's been asking for you." Chris led me to the bed and placed my hand into Grandpa's. "Here she is, Grandpa, your granddaughter-in-law." His hand was even warmer than mine, almost hot. He trembled as he spoke, mumbling long-winded blessings. He told me and Chris to live a good life together. He said Chris was a man worth trusting. And then he added, "If I could hold a great-grandchild in my arms before I die, I'd have no regrets." I could have sworn I saw him pinch Chris's hand when he said the word great-grandchild. I replied with a few gentle words, encouraging him to take care of his health. Mr. and Mrs. Grant stood silently by, their expressions unreadable. Then Grandpa insisted that Mrs. Grant bring out the family heirloom, a jade bracelet, and made a point of slipping it onto my wrist himself. "This bracelet," he said, "was blessed by the temple when your grandma was still alive. Once you wear it, you can't take it off or you'll have bad luck." I nodded and promised I'd keep it on, pretending not to notice Chris giving Grandpa a subtle thumbs up behind my back. Honestly, the whole family could have been actors, but still, Who could have imagined that this white-haired, mischievous old man had once ruled the business world with an iron fist? I didn't expose their little parade. I couldn't even explain why. Maybe because it felt warm. Since returning from Hong Kong, I'd been busy with work and hadn't told my mother about the marriage certificate. She had asked several times to meet Chris and his family, but I kept putting her off with excuses. Chris was too busy, where Grandpa's health wasn't good. Unlike with Michael's family, my mom's attitude toward the Grants was entirely different. I hope everyone here won't misunderstand her. Hearing him say that, Emily stared at him in disbelief. Completely losing control, she screamed, "Michael, what did Zoe do to you? Are you out of your mind? You love me. Why are you defending her?" Security finally arrived and managed to drag Emily away, despite her kicking and flailing. The ridiculous scene was over. Michael turned to the crowd and bowed slightly. "I apologize for the chaos my personal matters have caused. Please, I also ask that you stop bothering Zoe about this moving forward." With that, he asked his attendant to wheel him out of the hall. I stood on stage the whole time, motionless, taking in everything, completely unsurprised. Because Michael was the one I'd arranged to come. And I'd known in advance that Emily would cause a scene. A station's anniversary event was invite only. Not just anyone could enter. Emily had bribed someone at the station to get an invitation, trying to buy it for an exorbitant amount. That employee told me what she was doing, and I told him to give it to her. I'd already anticipated the chaos, so I'd gone to the John house earlier and spoken with Michael. Honestly, I was shocked when I saw him again after several months. He looked like a completely different person, so much thinner. When he saw me, he was surprised too. That's when I learned his latest heart episode had been much worse than the last. He nearly died on the operating table. He said that facing death made a lot of things suddenly clear. He pulled out a small charm from under his shirt and showed it to me. "You gave this to me 3 years ago when I was in the hospital," he said, his voice choked. "This little charm is what got me through it." I stared at the charm, my chest tightening. I remembered begging for that charm with every step I took, kneeling hundreds of times along a long road to a temple, blistering my knees just to pray sincerely for his safety. Michael's eyes were red. "Zoe, I had no idea. I didn't know you went through all that for me. If my grandma hadn't gone to pray on my behalf this time and accidentally heard the story, I'd still be in the dark. I'm so sorry I really let you down." Even though I had already moved on from the past and let go of Michael, hearing him say all this still stirred something painful in me. Choking up, he said, "I'm sorry for everything I've done. Zoe, can you forgive me?" I took a breath and calmed my emotions before answering. "Michael, some wounds can't be healed with a simple apology. I loved you for 10 years. I've tasted joy, sorrow, anger, and tears. Even though we ended in heartbreak, I don't regret it because everyone has to pay for the choices they make. I chose you, and getting hurt was the price I paid. But Emily is different. She hurt me because of you. That wasn't mine to bear." I looked him in the eyes. "If you really feel guilty, then deal with her yourself. Make sure she stays out of my life. For good." So Michael showing up tonight wasn't entirely unexpected. It was planned. But even if he hadn't come to defend me, I had a backup plan. I've worked too hard to get where I am. I wasn't going to let Emily destroy me. Meanwhile, just outside the TV station, a black Maybach sat parked on the roadside. Inside, Chris lounged comfortably in the back seat, sipping tea and flipping through a copy of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. On the seat beside him was a bouquet of Juliet roses, waiting to be handed to me when I came out. He was deeply absorbed in his reading when the driver glanced at the front entrance and said, "Emily just got thrown out." Chris gave the door a sideways glance and smiled with obvious delight. "Keep an eye on her. Make sure he never shows up in front of Miss Zoe again," Chris said calmly. The driver chuckled. "Miss Zoe would never guess that it was you who told that staffer to leak the information to him." Ever since the scandal about Emily broke, Chris had someone keeping a close eye on her. When he found out that Michael had refused to see her, He knew she'd grow desperate and eventually try to blame everything on Zoe. He'd already anticipated she'd cause trouble and made sure the entire situation would be redirected. The employee at the station had only planned to sell her the invitation for money, but it was Chris who offered 3 times the price to make sure he not only sold it to her but also told Zoe in advance. Still, the driver asked, "Why didn't you just handle Emily yourself, sir? Would have saved all the trouble." Chris sipped his tea and closed the book. "Because I know my Zoe, she's proud. She wouldn't want me to step in. The one who ties the knot must be the one to untie it. And the real key to dealing with Emily lies with Michael." Zoe understood that better than anyone. Instead of waiting for a landmine to go off unexpectedly, she chose to trigger it on her own terms. He smiled thoughtfully. "Besides, I knew exactly what she was planning. After tonight, her reputation will soar even higher. And she'll come out of this not just untarnished but standing on the moral high ground. Fame and virtue both in one shot." He looked out the window, clearly proud. "My Zoe knows how to use the media and public opinion better than I ever imagined. She's far more clever and capable than I thought." After the anniversary gala ended, I walked out of the building and saw Chris standing beside the Maybach, holding a bouquet of roses. As he walked toward me, smiling, he handed me the flowers. I took them and brought them to my nose. "They smell amazing. Thank you, I love them." People nearby started whispering and glancing in our direction. "Isn't that Chris from the story group?" Someone said, "The rumored tycoon from Hong Kong. Oh my God, he's chasing Zoe. He looks even better in person than on TV." In full view of everyone, Chris reached out and draped his arm around my shoulder. Then he opened the car door for me himself. "I booked us a table," he said. "Come on, let's celebrate." Smiled. "All right." Later, Michael went abroad with his family for treatment. Before he left, he asked a friend to give me the jade Buddha pendant, saying it was in return for the charm I'd once given him, for memory's sake. But I declined it. As for Emily, it was as if she had vanished from the face of the earth. Someone heard anything about her for years. Until much later, when I overheard someone mention that she couldn't cope with the fall from grace, spiraled into madness, and was eventually committed to a psychiatric hospital. And as for me and Chris, we went from pretend to real. When he married me, his grandfather sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Leaning close to my ear, Chris grinned and whispered, "You're such a blessing. Even Grandpa's illness vanished thanks to you." Then, thank you for taking the time to read this story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, like and share in the comments. Remember, history is a witness to the past, a light of truth, a living memory, a teacher of life, a messenger of antiquity, and see you soon.